So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As a reminder, we are recording the session. We post our study groups on YouTube channel. So if you missed any of our studies, you can catch them there. If you are not willing to have your name or your screen shown, you have to change your name or remove yourself from the recording. Also, I'm going to repeat this when we finish, but starting next week, we are going to have only one Zoom link and password for all our meetings. Zoom is changing starting mid of next month, and all meetings have to have a password. So we're going to have to start with a new link for all our meetings with one link, one password. But we'll send information on the emails. If you are not on the emails, please send your email to, I'll post there on the chat, so we can include you in our list. Okay? Oops. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So that means that, well, how we're gonna get newcomers?
Oh, the same. It doesn't change anything. It's just that we won't have the three, four different links to each different meeting. We have one link for all meetings. That's the only change. So whoever is receiving through email will know the new one, or you can go through the website. Will be there also.
Oh, you'll be there on the website. Okay.
Yeah. No, nothing changes. It's just that the only thing that changes is we will have one link for all meetings. So that will make life easy for everyone.
Okay.
Easier. Okay. So starting next Tuesday. Yeah. I'll give you more information as when we finish. So last week we started book 4 of the Spirit's book, which is the last part of the Spirit's book. I gave a brief introduction. It's a chapter called Hope and Consolation. It has only 2 chapters, and I went over earthly joys and sorrows and future joys and sorrows. So earthly joys and sorrows is our experiences when we are incarnated. And that's where we are. We started last week with relative happiness and unhappiness, and we still are in the middle of it. We are on question 926. Yes, 926. I don't think we have Soraya. I think Philip, you're going to read for us today.
Okay.
Paco is not here, Soraya is not here, and but Philip is. So Philip, take over, please.
926. Does civilization, by creating new wants, become the source of new afflictions? The problems of your world are proportional to the artificial wants that you create for yourselves. People who are able to set limits on their desires and see what is above them without feeling envy, spare themselves many disappointments. The richest person is the one with the fewest needs. You envy the pleasures of those who appear to be favored by fortune, but do you know what is in store for many of them? If they use their wealth only for themselves, they are selfish, and a terrible misfortune awaits them. Instead of feeling envy, you should feel pity for them. God sometimes allows the wicked to prosper, but you should not envy their prosperity because they will pay for it with bitter tears. When a righteous person experiences the trials of misfortune, they reap rich rewards if they bear them with courage. Remember Jesus' words, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. 920.
So here, oops. No, so here we're talking about the struggles that we face in our physical lives with different sorts of difficulties. We discussed about how as civilization evolves, we have different needs, things that we didn't need before, we need now, but we also have the advantage of having less hard work to do, in a sense. So, when we create facilities that help us live our life better, and we make good use of these facilities that free our time to help those that are in need, to help ourselves to progress, and to help those that are in need, we are having an opportunity to evolve. Now, it is on each one's own personal path to take advantage of what is offered to them. And again, we cannot say that we understand the difficulties of someone that lived 200 years ago, because we cannot remember if we were living there, and we only remember the experiences of this present life for most of us. And as we evolve, as we create new wants, the question is, do they become source of new afflictions? They become source of new afflictions if we create those afflictions for ourselves. If we suffer because our neighbor has something that we don't have, some material things that we don't have, we are creating sufferings that are, like they say here, the artificial ones that you create for yourselves. Again, some things that were created to help us progress are not artificial ones, but are necessities. So, you think when we are here in the middle of this hot day and we have air conditioner, is this an artificial want, or is this a necessity? Again, I lived in Miami for a couple of years, 20 years ago, and I learned that Miami before air conditioner was a swamp, was nothing. Only air condition allow Miami to become the city that it is today, very big city, that very prosperous and with lots of opportunities. So are you going to say that air conditioner is a luxury? No, it may be a luxury for some, that when they live in a place that it's very difficult to have one. But when you live in a place that it's a way of making you comfortable to work and to be better productive for yourself, you cannot say that it is an artificial one. And again, we cannot say what it is and what it's not. It is individual, and it is according to the society we live in. So whatever is artificial in one society may be a necessity on other, and so on. So if you live in the middle of Greenland and you have a jet ski, is this an artificial want, or is a necessity to move around? It's the same thing as you having a car here, right? So we have to be very careful how to understand this explanation about artificial wants. But the key phrase here that the Spirit gives to us is, the richest person is the one with the fewest needs. Again, the more we are comfortable and resigned with what we have, the happiest we'll be. And it doesn't matter what we have. It for each person is different. But we'll be happier if we live with fewer needs than those around us. And we try to compare ourselves, and we don't know the difficulties of those that are facing challenges because of good fortune. We joke many times here that about those people that win the lottery, and after a while they end up losing everything, and they end up more miserable than they were before. I read somewhere a statistic that said that your level of happiness, if you win the lottery, after 6 months is back to where it was before you won. So that's not really what makes the difference. What makes the difference is how you face those situations and how you accept what is provided to you, what you have, and resign with what you need to live a comfortable life. And again, for each one of us is a different concept, the comfortable life. But a life that allows us to be in peace with ourselves, to work towards the assistance and help of others and the assistance of and help of ourselves, is what we should aim for. Again, it's our objective. We are imperfect spirits, so we are going to make mistakes. We are going to have struggle with some things that we don't have, and this is part of our evolution as human beings. But the understanding of the happiness that will be brought to us by ourselves with fewer needs, it's what we need to understand here. Like they said, when the righteous person experiences the trials of misfortune, they reap rich rewards if they bear them with courage. So that's what's going to make a difference. Okay? Questions, comments? Nothing? Oh, Luis, yes.
It's actually a minor language point. I don't know if it's translation related. I'm not well versed in the Bible in English, but this saying, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." In Portuguese is "Blessed are those who suffer, for they shall be comforted." And for me, the meaning is significantly different with mourn than with suffer. Do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it's in the Bible here, and I think all these quotes were taken from the new version of the Bible, so they're not a pure translation. They were taken literally from the new Bible version or something like that.
Forget this one. So look. Monday.
So I'm not sure, but I agree with you. I think that the right translation, those who suffer, it's not exactly. I think that it's again. Well, it's a English discussion here, a words discussion, so I'm not sure. Yeah. But I understand where you come from. I think mourn gives us sometimes an impression that it's not exactly what Jesus wanted to say here in that sense. Okay. Go, Philip.
927. The superfluous is certainly not indispensable to happiness, but this is not true with regard to the necessities of life. So isn't the misfortune of those who are deprived of them real? A person is truly unfortunate only when deprived of what is necessary for survival and physical health. If this deprivation is the result of their own behavior, they have only themselves to blame. If it is the fault of others, serious accountability lies with those who have caused it.
So here, we're going to the other extreme. So those that don't even have the bare necessities of life, isn't it misfortune? And the spirits are saying here clearly that if you are deprived for what's necessary for survival and for physical health, you are truly unfortunate. But what they say after is what's important, because if this deprivation is the result of their own behavior, they only have themselves to blame. If it's the fault of others, meaning society, serious accountability lies with those who have caused it. So goes back to the maxim of Spiritism: without charity there is no salvation. That we as a society are responsible for those that cannot survive or that do not have the minimum necessities to live a decent life. And if society is failing them, and we see a lot around the world in different degrees, then we are all collectively responsible for this to happen. Of course, each responsibility goes according to the knowledge, to the possibilities of doing something. So it's not the same degree of responsibility for everyone. But the fact that we live in a planet of trials and atonements, it's our collective responsibility. We are going to move into a planet of regeneration when we, as a society, change in a significant way, meaning being able to help and assist the majority of those that are in need. And nowadays, we are only helping the minority of those that are truly in need. So, of course, there is individual responsibility. Someone that is living in misery as a consequence of their own actions, with their own misdeeds, they are going to have the responsibility for their situation. But even in those cases, society as a whole has a responsibility to help and assist those in need. But the level of responsibility lies more with the individual than with society. So when we go to a place that a more, let's say, a more evolved country, that individuals are able to be assisted when they are in need, and they refuse to be assisted, or they reject the assistance, or they isolate themselves. It happens. These are the cases where the responsibility is more on the individual than in the society. But when you have a place, a poor country, and most people, a lot of people are starving because it's not their fault, they have no opportunities, then the responsibility is with us as a society. Okay? No comments, no questions?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with the word only. Expression nowadays maybe it was a fact when the book was published, but for today, the word only, when deprived of what's necessary for surviving physical health, it gives them a little bit of a problem. I think a person can be considered unfortunate these days if that person is denied technology, education, justice. There's a lot of the things beyond the plain survival of the physical body. And I think some can be considered truly unfortunate, even if they have the minimum necessary for the survival of their body.
Yeah, I agree that the word only there may give a more difficult interpretation, yes. Daniela?
You're indicating that only because a person can be deprived of ability to improve their life by restrictions put on them. Is that what you mean?
Well, what I mean is that I believe a person can be considered in our days today truly unfortunate, being deprived of other things other than only what's necessary for survival and physical health. Things like education, like
Yeah, okay.
justice, like technology.
Yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Sure.
But again, I think you need education for survival nowadays, right? So, but anyway, it's a more complicated discussion. Daniela.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very interesting what Elmo is saying, because the question before, it says like the more necessities we create, it gets like we create more maybe unhappiness for ourselves because we are needing more things. But as Elmo was saying, even if someone is not in a big city or is in a rural area or a small village, this person needs technology, right? It's not or education or justice or other things that we end up creating to ourselves. Like technology it's becoming, especially now that's proven more and more, that children, if they don't have technology, they can't learn because they are stuck in the house or they are distant from schools and anybody else who is engaged in school. So because when we were reading next week and it was talking about that as well, like I was thinking, well, maybe we don't need computers and cell phones, but yes, we do. It's a matter of living in the world we live now. So the way it's there, it makes me feel a little bit guilty, like, oh, I have so much and I don't need that much. But I think I almost said in a very simple way that we do need education, we do need technology, we do need just more than the bare necessities of, to survive.
Yes, and again, what is necessary for survival and physical health is different in New York than in the middle of some poor country in Africa, right? They don't have access to technology and to the comforts of society. So the necessities for survival and physical health are different there than they are here. I agree with you that in New York, if you don't have education, you don't have what is necessary for survival, right? You need to have at least basic education. So it varies depending on where you are and depending on the society you live in. So I think that when we talk about what's necessary for survival, it depends on where you are and what's necessary for survival on each different place, right? What's necessary for survival in Alaska is different than what's necessary for survival in Arizona.
Yeah, but still, like if in Africa maybe they don't have clean water nearby, technology can help them have clean water. So, technology doesn't mean we just have a smartphone and a laptop, right? So technology can mean so many more, like it can mean clean water or access to sewage. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, because technology
yes, but
so many
but
things.
then is society, right? That it's not them, right? Here, when we talk about what's necessary for survival, when we talk about technology bringing clean water or bringing it's an external thing that is brought to them that allows them to the very basic for survival. And so it's different than also you providing clean water is different than providing education, because clean water will help them with their physical health. But if they don't have a basic education on what's needed in that place, they won't be able to survive also. They won't have the necessary for survival. So it's complex. It's a lot of different things.
I think that this is a result of when this was originally written, and it hasn't been necessarily updated as things in the world have changed. Originally, health, physical health, was about all we needed and the ability to grow food. But today, as you go from country to country, there are different ability or accesses available to individuals. And now in New York, we can put things in the air that will kill people in Africa. They haven't caused that. We have. So I think this would have to be really rewritten with all those things in mind to change it.
I don't necessarily agree, Philip. I think what's written there is very basic, and it applies throughout times. It's our interpretation that can change according to what we're discussing here. But I think that the saying a person is unfortunate when deprived what is necessary for survival and physical health can apply any time of humanity, right? It doesn't mean that doesn't change with our progress. But yeah, Luis.
Yeah, sorry for interfering so much today, but I wonder, when you think a little in a larger scope about this, think about nations. We can easily apply this to people in government in a nation such as Venezuela, for instance. But let's think about Iran, a theocracia where this religious structure really deprives people of what's necessary for survival, physical health, dignity, and other things. Are they accountable? Who is accountable? The Ayatollahs?
Society, and who is the ones responsible are the ones that are causing this, and the degrees of responsibility vary according to how much of ability you have to make a change. So we individually sometimes have very little scope for making a big change. But if you are running a country, if you are part of a government, you are responsible for everything that happens to the population. If the population is suffering, you have your degree of responsibility and you face the consequences of that responsibility. So when talking about countries that are the population of countries that are victims of their governments, the governments will be responsible. That's what happens, right? You cannot say that someone that is struggling for food in North Korea is responsible, has any individual responsibility. It's the responsibility of a regime that has been there for 50 years and caused that famine in the country, right? But again, we have to cover both sides here. We cannot say that no one is not responsible for for what's happening to them, because when we think of ourselves as eternal spirits, everything that we are going through is in part consequence of our own actions in the past. We may not remember, we may not see, but if we are living in a regime that oppresses and persecutes people, why we are there? It's not an answer I can give you, and it's an individual answer, but we are there for some reason, right? We are born where we are born for a reason, for us for trials and atonements, which are the two objectives of our progress. So no no one on earth has no responsibility at all. We all have responsibilities according to our past. Now, how big is or small is the responsibility is different for each one. But as we understand that we are eternal souls and we are reincarnating and we are here because that's where we need to be in terms of trials and atonements, our atonements are part of a consequence of what we did to ourselves.
João,
Yes.
can I say something? I checked
Sure.
the French original. It says that is sort of, what to say? Let me read it to you. Person is truly unfortunately only when deprived of what is necessary for survival to leave what is necessary to live, essentially. So I think it has more meaning than just necessary for survival. So it goes back to your point. It's just what we added of, to live, what is necessary to live, was necessary for life or to live, and physical health. I think it just adds a little bit more of a clarification on your point.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Fabio.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I opened Pandora boxes here. That was not my intention. I just find a little reductionist answer when it basically reduces us to the animalia. If you have enough food that can be protected from the environment, that can perpetuate our own genetic pool, we should consider ourselves fortunate. I think as spirit in the pathway of progress where we find ourselves now, we need a lot more than that to be considered fortunate. But individually, at this level, not talking about nations, not talking about different parts of the world, really for us, spirits living where this world of today just survive as an animal is not enough to be considered fortunate.
Okay. Luis?
Well, here I am insisting again, but your position was very clear to me regarding nations and governments. But allow me to insist, when is a religion, a body of religion accountable when it causes, damage to people and do not provide for their survival? How can this be framed?
It's the same thing as an autocracy, in my opinion. Religious oppression is something that we have been living for millennia, right? And religious oppression, everyone that was persecuted and killed by religions, you can call them unfortunate or suffering, but when religious is the cause of suffering, the responsibilities with the religious leaders of that religion. It's society, right? If it's the fault of others, serious accountability lies with those who have caused it. That explains all aspects: religion, government, even a city that has none of these problems but doesn't take care of their citizens. So I think that the fault here, it's the responsibility of those that have the possibility of helping and assisting and are not doing so. That's the responsibility.
Yeah, I agree with you. Oppression is oppression regardless of where it's coming from. It may be from religions, it may be from military, it may be from financial powers. Oppression is oppression, regardless of what is the source. It is still oppression, and those who oppress are accountable for what they're doing, going to be responsible for what they're doing.
Yes. Okay. We continue here. Philip, next.
928. By our natural aptitudes, God shows each of us our special vocation in this world. Are many of the problems of life attributable to the failure to follow that vocation? That is true. Parents, through pride or greed, often force their children to deviate from the path set for them by nature, but they will be held responsible for the results of this misdirection. Do you approve of the son of a well-regarded individual becoming a shoemaker, for instance, if he was endowed with a natural talent for it? You must not waste time on absurd suggestions and exaggerations. Civilization has its necessities. Why would the son of a man holding a high position become a shoemaker if he were able to do something more important? Such an individual must always make himself useful according to his faculties, without contradicting common sense. For instance, if he does not have the aptitude to be a good lawyer, he might be a good engineer, mechanic, or any other profession. Assuming a position outside one's intellectual scope is one of the most frequent causes of failure and disappointment. Lack of aptitude for the career one has set out to follow is a never-ending source of disappointment. Often, pride prevents people who fail in one career to seek a humbler vocation. They are frequently tempted to commit suicide in order to escape what they view as humiliation. If a sound moral education elevates them above the stupid prejudices of pride, they are never at a loss to earn a living.
Okay, so this is another question that we have to put into context, right? We have to go back to the middle of the 19th century when basically you had you had two classes: the rich and the workers. The rich wouldn't work. Very few in the rich family would work, and all the rest would work. We were starting the industrial revolution, so we are starting to have changes in the workforce, but still basically we have two classes. Now, what the spirits are trying to say here is, if you can contribute to society in a meaningful way, don't go and do something that does not contribute or contributes very little to society. The shoemaker here is an example. But the important thing here is we have to make ourselves useful according to our faculties without contradicting common sense. When we talk, we're not going to go through the route of a shoemaker, because nowadays you can be a shoemaker and be a very rich person, and you just have to look up, ask women about those famous names of shoemakers that are very rich. So let's not go there. Let's talk about the concept here. And the concept is, if I have an ability to contribute to society, being anything that I can make a difference, but I refuse to do that, and instead I'm going to stay home or work in my, open my work as a I don't know, in a small shop selling magazines or whatever. Magazines don't exist anymore. So the concept here is, you have to work to the best of your abilities to be to be helpful to society. On the other hand, don't try to be something that you cannot, that you are going to find yourself unhappy, and you are not going to work to the best of our abilities. And that's the commentary from Kardec. The spirits make a little bit of a comment here. If you don't have an aptitude to be a good lawyer, you might be a good engineer, mechanic, of any other profession. Remember, there are not many professions in the middle of the 19th century. So nowadays we have a whole different scope of professions. But the comment from Kardec is that, and that was very common and at that time and still common today. So if you come from a rich family, the family expects you to be some profession that make them, the family, proud, and you have no vocation for that, and you end up causing disappointment and being a failure, and you don't change because you are afraid or ashamed of making those changes or facing family. That's the issue that Kardec is commenting here. So again, let's think about the context here. The context here is you have to be useful for yourself and for society to the best of your abilities, whatever are these abilities. And if you cannot find them, then change and look for whatever abilities you are, because we all can contribute. And how can we contribute it depends on each one of us. Okay? No questions here? No comments? I thought this was going to generate a lot of comments, but okay. All right, nothing. Let's move forward. Daniela, yes. You're mute. You're muted.
All right. I think it's people are quiet because might touch on a personal level. Like my example is that when I wanted to study history in high school, my father was like, you are not going to make any money. Like you're going to become a teacher. What you're going to do with history? So I ended up going to economics, which I never worked with. And years later, here I am in history, teaching and very happy. So, maybe that's why people are quiet. It touches on a very personal level, at least for me, So, yeah.
and I think it's not only you, Daniel. I agree with you. I think many of us ended up doing not what we really wanted to do, but things that we thought we were going to provide for a better living condition, right? I think you are lucky that you went back to what you originally wanted, and you are happy there, right? Lucky is not the word because you chose. So you are fortunate enough to have been able to go the route of what you wanted. But yes, it's still today we are with this. This was a big problem in the middle of the 19th century, because if you are born in a rich family, no way you could work in a very simple condition. And that's the example of the shoemaker here, because a shoemaker in the middle of the 19th century was a poor person and that was only working to make shoes, right? And nowadays we have a whole different aspect, and we have a whole different gamma of professions. So I think it's relevant nowadays in the sense that there are so many different things we can do today. So let's try to find our path that makes us, that fulfill us, because when we are fulfilled, we can work better to help those in need, right? Because we'll find, when we go to the spiritual world and we talk about the governor of Solar working for 200 years nonstop. Why does he work for 200 years nonstop? Because he really likes what he does. It's not work for him in the sense that we understand work here. It's an activity that he has, that it is important, that fulfills him completely. So that's why he doesn't need a break. He's working all the time. So that's the idea here, is to do something someone said a phrase that I think is very interesting, right? If you can do what you like, you will never work a day in your life. And that's exactly the idea here, right? But you have to be understanding our nature as eternal spirits and the necessity of living in society and working together to help us all progress. We have to be aware of the necessity of being of help to society.
And
Okay.
João,
Yes, Marisa. Yes.
what about the situation, the plan that you are incarnated for? Like,
if your neighbor Julio was here, he would be jumping on you on the word plan, right? He like hates the word plan, but no. So we come here with a blueprint of what we are supposed to do, but it's not written in stone. Our options are according to our necessities and with our abilities. So if you are a genius musician in one incarnation and you are going to come with the necessity of exploring other areas, so your music abilities will be blocked in this incarnation or will be restricted in this incarnation. That's not the only thing. You like arts. You have other avenues that you can pursue. So we don't come here with the obligation of being A, B, or C. We come here with the necessity of evolving and progressing morally and intellectually. The progressing intellectually, it can be through any avenue that we choose that will make us live a better life, right? We go back to the concept of happiness. If we are not happy with what we are doing, we make all those around us unhappy, and we end up hurting ourselves. So we need to find some sort of happiness, of peace of mind with what we are doing in order to be able to progress.
Because like in the Bible, you see the apostles, all simple guys, and it became huge. And Saulo became Paul, and he was educated to be the highest of the highest, and he became highest spiritually, but very humble. So see the difference in the Bible, what they show us. They are here for a purpose. I think following this situation, we are here for this one as well. Sometimes you are up there and something makes it go down but you feel much better and humble, but happy to do what you're doing. And the opposite. But of course, everything is about happiness and feel well, So it's a both ways. You are in that up can go down, and the down can be up.
Yeah, the concept of relative happiness is very important here, because if you are unhappy, you cannot be, you are not productive. If you are unhappy, you are a burden to yourself and maybe to others. So the concept of finding what brings you happiness, the sense of an honest work, any honest work possible that can help you move forward, it's what should be our objective here. And again, we live in an imperfect society, so I'm not saying that everyone will be able to find their perfect dream job, because we're not. But we need to find a way to survive with something that gives us some sort of satisfaction in order to be able to be relatively happy. There is no simple recipe here. It's complex. It's always complex.
Yeah.
But what the basic message here is to do something that makes us unhappy. It's not the right path to follow. if we have the, and again, sometimes we don't have alternatives, sometimes it's a little much more complicated than it's not that simple, but we have to discuss the ideal here. And the ideal is to find something that brings us relative happiness so we can make it, we can live our life in the best way possible.
And useful, as you said.
Yes, useful, exactly.
Yeah. It's the most important. Yeah. Thank you, João.
Thanks. Okay, Philip, go ahead.
There are individuals destitute of all resources who, despite the abundance all around them, do not see any other option for their problem except death. What course should they take under such circumstances? Should they allow themselves to die of hunger? No, no one should ever seriously contemplate the idea of dying of hunger. A person can always find the means of obtaining food if pride does not insert itself between want and work. It has often been said that no work is dishonorable if honestly done, but this is one of those sayings that people are quick to preach to their neighbors rather than applying to themselves.
Yeah,
Continue.
read the next one. Yeah, read the next one.
It is clear that were it not for the social prejudices that we allow to sway us, a person is always able to find some sort of work to earn a living, even if in a humbler life and position. Among people who have no such prejudices and those who can set them aside, there are some who are truly unable to provide for their needs due to illness or other circumstances beyond their control. In a society organized according to Christ's laws, no one would ever die of hunger. In a wise and considerate society, no one lacks the necessities of life unless it is by their own fault. A person's faults are often the result of the circumstances in which they find themselves. When people advance enough to exercise God's laws, they are not only better intrinsically as individuals, but they are also organized their social relations based on justice and charity.
Okay. So in these two questions, we continue with the same discussion, right? The first one, Kardec asks about the suicide. In this case, an indirect suicide, if they allow themselves to die of hunger because they don't see any other option. And the spirits are very clear that no one should ever seriously contemplate the idea of dying of hunger, meaning if we set aside our pride and our selfishness, we should be able to find a way to survive. Again, this is theory, and this is not 100% of the cases, but we're talking about here about the majority, those that are not too proud to do the work that can help them make some sort of means of survival, will survive one way or another. In the words of the spirits here, no work is dishonorable if honestly done, right? But of course, we go back to society, because the spirit say here in the second question, in a society organized according to Christ's laws, no one would ever die of hunger. Meaning, in a society that takes care of everyone according to everyone's need, in a spiritually evolved society, no one die of hunger because there is food for everybody and there is the minimum bare necessities to help and assist those. But we don't have this perfect society here on earth. We only know it in theory, and even in the most advanced countries, we still are not perfect in a way of preventing those that have less to suffer one way or another. But the message from the spirits here is work to improve society, work to improve where you live so everyone can live better. Don't allow anyone in your society to die of hunger because of lack of assistance. And we go back to the individual responsibilities against the responsibility of society. It's a two-way street. Individuals have responsibility in the sense that if they don't find anything useful to do because of pride, because they cannot lower themselves to do works that they think are beneath them, then it's their responsibility. But if they work very hard to find something and nothing comes because society does not provide assistance, then the responsibility is 100% of society. Luis.
Well, looks like I'm picky today. I totally agree with your overall answer and the spirit of the two questions, of the two answers, actually. I just would like to point out that on question 930, whoever translated this forgot that the second part is a question. When you check the Portuguese version, the actual question is, among the people who, due to illness or other circumstances, are truly unable to provide to their needs, what about them? And so whoever translated this forgot to, it was a question. And I totally agreed with you that the reply to this is society should organize itself so that everyone would not die of hunger. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm just checking here. Yeah, the French one doesn't have a question. Also, it's a statement. It's a statement in the French, the 930. It's not a question. So yes, but you're right. It's in the end is responsibility of society. Okay, and there is we can discuss here as much as we want the individual's responsibility and society, but in an equitable society that is able to provide for everyone, then you pass the responsibility to the individuals on their own progress. Because if you provide conditions that are fair enough for individuals to have what is needed to do their own work, and then it's on each one to do whatever is needed. But again, we live in an imperfect society, and we will have to still live with the differences. And actually, these differences is what motivates us to work harder. Some of us to work harder to improve the conditions of everybody. So, but anyway, we came to the end of it. So we start next week. We'll continue with this. We haven't finished yet, but we still have, I think, yeah, we have a couple of questions left, 3 questions left, and we'll continue next week. So for, I don't know if everybody were here in the beginning. Starting next week, starting Tuesday, we are going to have only one link for all our meetings, all our study groups. The Tuesdays, the Thursdays, and the Sundays will have the same link and one password for you to join the meeting. It will be a new link because Zoom is changing the way they are doing things in the middle of July. So we are anticipating, we are creating one link for all our meetings. If you have any doubts, please reach out to me. You should see it on our website, and you should see it on our emails that are going to start starting next week, we are going to start sending it only once a week, the emails with our activities, because nobody's opening the emails anymore. So we don't think it's relevant to send 3 times a week anymore. Okay. Now, any questions on that? Was I clear? Okay. So what do we have for this weekend? On Saturday, we have a lecture by Alexandre Caldini. And if you, some of you probably remember him, he was at SGNY like 3-4 years ago, and he gave a lecture about death. So he's going to speak on Saturday, 11 a.m., New York time. Death according to Spiritism. He has a very unique way of explaining. I really enjoy his lectures. So he'll be with us this Saturday at 11 a.m. Don't miss it. I really think it's going to be very interesting. And then on Sunday, we have Jussara. We continue our series of lectures on mediumship, fundamentals of mediumship. And for those that watched my lecture on Perispirit last Sunday of last month, I said in the beginning that I gave the basic explanation of Spiritism, and there was a second lecture with the Perispirit on mediumship. So Jussara's lecture will be the role of the Perispirit in mediumship. Okay, so Sunday, 11 a.m. So as Luis asked, Saturday, the lecture by Caldini is always, as always, through the YouTube and Facebook of the United States Spiritist Federation. Sunday, Jussara's lecture on Sunday is through our own Zoom, SGNY Zoom, because it's a SGNY study, okay? If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, so we are going to ask Carol to do our final prayer of the first part.
Okay, thank you. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we are grateful for the opportunity to be together this evening for our studies in the Spirit's book, to have a better understanding of relative happiness and unhappiness as we play our parts. We are grateful to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors who are with us, providing and encouraging us to go forth in a new way each day, to do better and better, applying the principles of Spiritism as we are able to do so. We are truly grateful. We have learned that relative happiness and unhappiness is often on us. We are creating it. We are creating our future today. Therefore, let us be mindful, not be moping or complaining, but truly bring to our minds and to our hearts what we can do, what we can bring forth to improve not only ourselves, but our community, our families, and our world. We have that obligation since we have the knowledge that this is so. As we close this portion of the meeting this evening, we ask humbly for safety and protection for those who are on their way. May our family, friends, and loved ones also be protected. May their health be enhanced, and may the good spirits go with them now, during this time, and throughout the week, and throughout the pandemic. We are grateful for the opportunity to be together, learning the lessons that Spiritism has to offer. We know that these lessons really are enhancing our lives and enhancing our world. We close now and humbly ask to receive the love and light of Christ within us. And may we go forth as beacons of light. Go forth now in peace. So be it.